Just to be sure, there's a spoiler. Rick and Morty's latest episode confirmed that all the shocking things we've heard about Beth's childhood have been 100% true. Rick and Morty Season 8, Episode 6, The CuRicksous Case of Bethajmin Button, sees Beth and Space Beth hopping into a de-aging pod to regress into childhood. They come out of that pod as a pair of troublemaking kids. As Beth and Space Beth turn themselves back into kids, we get to see what Beth was like as a child. We've heard a lot about Beth's childhood from Rick going back to Season 3, but it always seemed like he might be exaggerating about the darker parts. This latest episode confirms that he wasn't exaggerating. It was all true. Welcome to Movie Spy. Rick and Morty Season 8, Episode 6, confirms that young Beth was as scary and violent as Rick said. Young Beth really did need Fruppy Land after all. In Season 3, Episode 9, The ABCs of Beth, it was revealed that when Beth was a kid, Rick created a magical fantasyland for her called Fruppy Land. In Beth's recollection, Rick only created Fruppy Land so he wouldn't have to do any real parenting and could get her out of his way. But Rick had a different explanation. Rick explained that he made Fruppy Land to protect the neighborhood from Beth, because she was a scary, violent kid. He gave her this fantasy world so she could exercise her psychopathic impulses in a consequence-free environment. Back then, it seemed like he might have been exaggerating to excuse his far-from-perfect track record as a father. The curious case of Bethajmin Button darkly confirms that Rick wasn't exaggerating. When the Beths de-age themselves to childhood, they prove to be just as scary and violent and sadistic as Rick described. They break into Jean's house, stab him, and set the place on fire. It turns out she really did need Fruppy Land as a playground for bloodshed. It seems that Rick being around more wouldn't have helped much. Beth is still just as psychopathic when Rick bonds with her. It's generally accepted that Rick being a distant father had a negative impact on Beth. She frequently blames Rick's shaky parenting for all her problems, and it can't have helped. But the curious case of Bethajmin Button suggests that even if Rick had been around more and been more emotionally available, it still wouldn't have done much good. When Rick confronts the de-aged Beths, he hears their point about his bad parenting and decides to make up for it. Before turning them back into adults, he spends an afternoon being a good dad in one of Rick and Morty's sweetest moments. But even when he spends some quality time bonding with them, they're still eager to burn things and stab people. Thanks for watching.